In a beautiful Maasai village known as Nkarengiro, there lived a young girl named Nalepo. She was the only child of Leander, the village leader, and his wife, Nkaima. Nalepo was admired by everyone in the village, not just for her beauty, but also for her intelligence and creativity. From a young age, she loved to design her Maasai attire, skillfully combining Maasai shukas and beads into intricate patterns. Her friends, Nailai and Nanyoki, often helped her with her designs, and together they were inseparable. The trio's laughter and joy filled the village, making everyone around them smile. Nalepo's life seemed perfect. She was surrounded by love, friends, and a supportive community. However, as her 15th birthday approached, something began to worry her. In her village, when a girl turned 15, she was expected to undergo a ritual called circumcision. This tradition was meant to mark her transition from childhood to womanhood. Being the daughter of the village leader, Nalepo was expected to set an example for the other girls. But deep inside, the thought of this procedure filled her with fear. She had heard stories of the pain and the risks involved, and the idea of going through it scared her terribly. Nalepo didn't share her fears with anyone, not even her parents or friends. She didn't want to disappoint her mother, who led the women in performing the circumcisions. It was a tradition, something that had been done for generations. But to Nalepo, it felt like a dark cloud hanging over her happy life. One evening, Nalepo was walking past her parents' hut when she heard them talking. She stopped and listened quietly. Her father, Leander, was saying that she was going to be married to a rich Maasai man named Matasia. Matasia's family had already given the dowry, a goat and 2 packets of sugar. But before she could get married, Nalepo had to be circumcised, just like the tradition in their village. That night, Nalepo couldn't sleep. She kept turning in her bed, feeling scared and worried. Her parents were making big decisions about her life without asking her. She didn't want to be married or circumcised. The next day, she told her friends Nailai and Nanyoki what she had heard. They were all surprised and didn't know what to do. Later that afternoon, as Nalepo, Nailai and Nanyoki went to fetch water from the village well, they heard cries coming from nearby bushes. Curiosity and concern led them to investigate, and what they found shocked them. A young girl, who had just been circumcised, was hiding in the bushes. She was in terrible pain, bleeding and trembling. The sight horrified Nalepo and her friends. It was the first time they had seen the reality of what awaited them. The fear that Nalepo had been suppressing suddenly became very real, and it was clear that her friends were just as frightened. As they returned home, the 3 girls were silent, each lost in her own thoughts. They knew that soon, they too would be expected to go through the same ritual. Days passed, and the girls tried to carry on as usual, but the fear was always there. That one evening, as they sat together, they made a decision that would change their fates forever. They would run away from the village, escaping the fate that awaited them. It was a daring plan, filled with uncertainty and danger, but they knew it was their only chance. When the night came for their escape, the village was quiet. The girls packed a few belongings and left their homes, their hearts pounding with fear. They moved silently through the village, careful not to wake anyone. The path ahead was dark and filled with danger, but they were determined. As they made their way through the dense bushes surrounding the village, they heard the terrifying sound of arrows being fired. The village guards, always on the lookout for girls trying to flee, had spotted them. The girls ran as fast as they could, but in the chaos, Nailai was struck by an arrow. She fell to the ground, and Nalepo and Nanyoki were forced to leave her behind, knowing they couldn't help her without risking their own lives. It was a heartbreaking moment. Nalepo and Nanyoki felt the weight of their friend's sacrifice as they continued running. They didn't stop until they were far from the village, deep in the wilderness. Exhausted and scared, they stick together, trying to find comfort in each other's presence. As they rested, a glimmer of hope appeared. It was a tourist car, its headlights cutting through the darkness, approached on a nearby road. Desperate for help, Nalepo and Nanyoki waved frantically, and to their immense relief, the car stopped. The tourists, shocked by the sight of the 2 frightened girls, took them into the car, promising to help them. The journey to Nairobi, the busy capital city of Kenya, was filled with mixed emotions. On one hand, the girls were relieved to have escaped the horrors of circumcision, but on the other hand, they were terrified of what they will face ahead. They had never been to a big city before, and the thought of being alone in a place so different from their village was overwhelming. When they arrived in Nairobi, the city was nothing like they had imagined. It was loud, busy, and filled with people who seemed to be in a constant rush. Nalipo and Nanyoki felt lost and out of place. They didn't know where to go or what to do, but they knew they had to find a way to survive. The first few days in Nairobi were tough. The girls had no money, no place to stay, and no idea how to navigate the city. But they were determined to make it through. They wandered the streets, looking for work, but everywhere they went, they were turned away. Just when they were about to lose hope, they came upon a small restaurant run by a kind woman, famously known as Mama Ntili. She saw the desperation in their eyes and offered them jobs washing dishes and serving customers. Mama Ntili was more than just an employer. She became a mother figure to Nalepo and Nanyoki. She took them under her wing, teaching them about life in the city and how to survive. The girls worked hard, grateful for the opportunity to earn a living. Despite the hardships, they supported each other, their friendship growing stronger with each passing day. Nalipo's passion for design never faded, and after 2 years of working at Mama Ntili's restaurant, she decided to pursue her dream. She enrolled in a tailoring school, determined to turn her love for fashion into a career. Nanyoki, on the other hand, chose to stay at the restaurant, where she had discovered her talent for cooking. Although their paths were starting to diverge, the bond between them remained strong. Nalipo's time at the tailoring school was both challenging and rewarding. She was one of the few women in her class, but her determination and talent quickly set her apart. She worked tirelessly, learning everything she could about tailoring, from the basics of sewing to the complex designs. Her designs, inspired by her Maasai heritage, were unique and beautiful, earning her the admiration of her teachers and classmates. Meanwhile, Nanyoki was thriving at the restaurant. She had become Mama Ntili's right-hand woman, helping to manage the kitchen and create new dishes. Her love for cooking grew with each passing day, and she started to dream of opening her own restaurant one day. As Nalipo's success grew, the dynamics between her and Nanyoki began to change. Nalipo's business started to take off, and she spent long hours working on her designs and attending meetings. Nanyoki, on the other hand, felt more rooted in the restaurant, and their paths started to diverge. One evening, as they sat in their small apartment, the tension between them finally bubbled to the surface. Nanyoki expressed her frustration, feeling like they were growing apart. Nalepo, equally frustrated, reminded her that they were both chasing their dreams. The argument left both girls feeling hurt and misunderstood. They were both trying to build their futures, but the demands of their ambitions were pulling them in different directions. Despite the tension, life continued. Nalepo's hard work eventually paid off when she was invited to showcase her designs at Nairobi's prestigious Fashion Week. It was a dream come true, a chance to present her work to the world. The fashion show was a grand event, filled with designers, photographers, and fashion enthusiasts. Nalipo's designs, a blend of traditional Maasai elements and modern fashion, were a highlight of the show. The audience applauded her work, and she felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. But as she stood under the bright lights of the runway, her thoughts drifted back to her village, to Nailai and the life she had left behind. Despite her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. As years went by, Nalepo's life in Nairobi got better and better. She became famous for her Maasai clothes, which she designed with bright shukas and colorful beads. Everyone in the city loved her work, and she even showed her designs at big fashion shows. But even though Nalepo was happy and successful, she never forgot her home village. She often thought about her parents, the old ways of the village, and her friend Nailai, who was left behind. One evening, as Nalepo looked at the sunset from her small room in the city, she felt a strong feeling in her heart. It was like the sun was calling her back to her village, reminding her of all the things she still needed to do. She knew she had to go back, face her fears, and most importantly, find out what happened to Nailai. Nalepo started making plans to return to Nkarangiro. She talked to people who could help her get there safely, even though she knew it might be dangerous. As she packed her bags, Nalepo felt scared and brave at the same time. Nairobi had given her freedom and success, but her village held all the answers to the questions in her heart. Standing at the edge of the busy Nairobi streets, Nalepo looked out to the faraway plains where her journey began. Her decision to go back was heavy on her mind, but she knew she had to do it. She needed to face the old traditions that once tried to hold her back, help the girls who were still suffering, and find Nailai. As Nalipo set off on her journey, many thoughts ran through her head. What would happen when she got back to her village? Would her parents be mad at her for running away? Would she get in trouble for not following the rules? And most of all, would she find Nailai? Was she okay, or did something bad happen to her? Nalipo didn't know what to expect, but she was determined. She wanted to make sure that every girl in her village could have the freedom to choose her own path. Upon returning to her village, Nalipo is shocked to find her family in the midst of preparations for the annual circumcision ceremony. The sight brings back painful memories of why she fled. Her heart races as she watches young girls, oblivious to the fate awaiting them, being groomed for the ritual. When her parents see her, their joy at her return quickly turns to anger. Her mother's eyes burn with disappointment, and her father's voice drips with bitterness. "You don't belong here anymore, Nalepo. You've betrayed our customs. How dare you show your face uncircumcised and speak against our ways?" Nalepo, though trembling, tries to reason with them. "What you're doing isn't right. I escaped because I refuse to suffer as so many girls do. We have to stop this." Her words fall on deaf ears. Her father shakes his head, his voice sharp. "Leave! You're not Maasai anymore." With that, they turn their backs on her, pushing her further from her home and her roots. Just as she's about to leave the village, broken and dejected, a familiar voice calls out. It's Nailai, her childhood friend, who secretly pulls Nalepo into her family's hut, offering her refuge for the night. The next day, the village carried out the circumcision ceremony, just as they had done for generations. However, this time, things took a dark turn. The newly circumcised girls fell gravely ill with an unknown disease. The village's traditional healing methods were proving ineffective, and the girls were not recovering. Panic spread quickly, and soon, the whole village was in chaos. Leander sent messengers to nearby villages to seek help, but no one knew how to treat the strange illness. More girls fell ill, and the village became filled with sorrow. Word of the critical situation reached Nalepo, who couldn't stand idly by. She knew that modern medicine could provide the help they needed, and she took immediate action. She contacted the doctors she knew from the city for help, and she successfully managed to bring back medical professionals despite the tensions between her and her family. The doctors worked tirelessly to treat the girls, and slowly, they began to recover. Nalepo's actions, although initially unwelcome, saved the young girls' lives. Her return not only healed the sick, but also opened the eyes of her village to the dangers of their practices. Her bravery, knowledge, and persistence in bringing modern medicine to the village forced many to reconsider their customs, sparking a long-overdue conversation about change. The villagers saw how modern medicine saved the girls when their traditional ways could not. They realized how dangerous circumcision was, and their views began to change. Leander, who had once supported the tradition, now spoke against it. He gathered the whole village for a ceremony, not to celebrate circumcision, but to give thanks that the girls were recovering. He announced that the village would no longer perform circumcision and that they would find new, safer ways to honor their daughters. Nalepo took this opportunity to show the village her talent in fashion. She organized a small show at the ceremony where she displayed beautiful clothes she had designed. The villagers were amazed by her work. They were proud that someone from their village had found success outside, using her skills to help others. Nalepo became a role model, not just for her bravery in speaking out against harmful traditions, but for her success as a designer. The ceremony was a new beginning for the village. Nalepo's parents, who had once stood by the old traditions, now became strong advocates for change. They worked with the medical professionals to teach the village and neighboring communities about the dangers of circumcision and the importance of keeping their daughters safe. Nalepo continued to live in Nairobi, where she built a successful career as a fashion designer. But she often visited her village to help educate others and to show them that change could lead to a better future. Her fashion shows became famous for blending Maasai culture with modern styles, showing how tradition and progress could work together. Nanyoki also achieved her dream of opening a restaurant. Her place became a popular spot in Nairobi, known for serving traditional Maasai dishes with a new twist. People from all over the city came to taste her delicious food and enjoy the warm atmosphere she created. Nalepo stood on the balcony of her apartment in Nairobi. Looking at the city lights, she felt proud. She knew she had made a difference for her people, and that future generations of girls would grow up free from the fear of circumcision. And so, Nalepo's bravery and determination brought great change to her village. Because she followed her heart and believed in doing what was right, the old traditions that once hurt the girls were no longer practiced. Nalepo showed that even when things seem scary or impossible, standing up for what's right can make a big difference. The village learned that caring for others and being open to new ways can bring happiness and health to everyone. Just like Nalepo, we can be brave, kind, and help those we love, even when it's hard. Nalepo's story is a reminder that change begins with courage, and we all have the power to make a difference. If you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that like button, share this story to inspire others, and don't forget to subscribe for more empowering tales. Together, we can build a brighter future, one story at a time. See you in the next one.